we just talked about how to factor out a GCF. Sometimes that GCF will be negative. So that's what this lesson is on, is if that GCF happens to be a negative factor. So what we always want whenever we're dealing with polynomials is we want our first term, our very first term, to have a positive coefficient, which means if our first term, our leading number, has a negative value, then we want to take out that negative, whether it's just a -1, as in my first example, where I took out a -1, which notice it just changed every sign because I divided each of these by -1. Or in my second example, where the GCF was actually 2, but I took out a -2, again, just dividing everything by that -2, so that my first term of my polynomial is positive. For this question, I will start using the same process that I did before. So I'm going to look at all 4 of my terms in this case. I'm going to find the number that would come out of all of them. My smallest number is 15, and so I'm going to use numbers like 1 and 15, starting with the 15 of course, and 3 and 5. But 15 doesn't work because 15 does not go into 20 evenly. 5 does go into all 4 of my terms. However, notice that my first term is negative, and whenever our first term, our leading coefficient, is negative, we want to take a negative out as well. So instead of just 5, I'm taking out a -5. Just as I did before, I'm going to write that on the outside immediately so I don't forget about it. And then I'm going to write what's left over. So -15 divided by -5 is +3a². And a positive divided by a negative gives me a -9a². And a negative divided by a negative gives me a +4a, and a positive divided by a negative gives me a -3. So that's my final answer. On our next question, again, we've got a -5 that would come out of all 3 terms. So -5 will be the coefficient. But then I also have to look at how many A's and B's would come out of everything. So I have 4 A's, 3 A's, 2 A's. So I could take 2 away from all of them. And I've got 1B, 2B, and 3B's, so I can only take 1 away from all of them evenly. So I'm going to put my -5a²b on the outside, and then I'm going to divide. -5 divided by -5 is 1. Again, you can write the 1 as the coefficient, but often we don't. 4 minus 2 is 2, so a to the second. And then b to the first minus b to the first is b to the 0, or just 1. So my first term is a². -10 divided by -5 is +2. And then 3 minus 2 is a to the first. And then 2 minus 1 is b to the first. 15 divided by -5 is -3. 2 minus 2 is 0, so that goes away. 3 minus 1 is b². Notice that because I divided by a negative, that this sign changed, that this sign changed, and that this sign changed. So all 3 of those signs should change when I divide by a negative factor. Try these 2 on your own, then press play to see how you did. On my first example, I should be using -3x as my GCF. So if I take out a -3x, that leaves me with +6x to the 4th, and then +5x, and then -2. One way to check to see if you got the biggest number that you could take out of everything is look at your remaining terms. If there's something else that could be taken out of all of them, go ahead and take that out as well, and then multiply it by whatever you already have out there. For instance, I'm going to do this one incorrectly at first. Let's say I thought I could only take out a 2ab. So if I took out a 2ab, that would leave me with 2a² plus 6ab plus 2. And then I would notice that I didn't quite get what I wanted because all 3 of these terms have a common factor of 2. So this, I'm going to leave my 2ab out front. This would also be able to be factored into 2, and then a squared plus 3ab plus 1. But then what do I do with the 2 and the 2ab? You would multiply them to get 4ab and then a squared plus 3ab plus 1. So remember, if you don't get it right the first time, it's okay. I could have started at the beginning by factoring everything by the 4ab and 4ab and 4ab, and I would have ended up right back here. This way is just kind of taking the long way. So if you get to the end and you look at them and have another common factor, go ahead and take it back out.